All right. Yeah. So let's go with what you actually studied. Was it an MBA or a bachelor? What was it?
So it was technically like a Bachelor of Business, and then I did a major in marketing and a minor in psychology.
When you say a minor and a major, what is that? Is that like a subject ranking or?
Yeah, it's like the number of modules you do in that specific area. So, say for example, with a bachelor, the way that it works is you've got like your core foundation units that you need to complete regardless, like every single Bachelor of Business, regardless of what you major in, has the
Mhm.
same foundation modules, which is like, law, politics,
Yep.
economics, marketing, IT, data analysis. Like it's got all the same core foundation units. And
Mhm.
then usually what happens is you pick your major. And then that's usually, I think from memory, like 8 units or something. And then you can optionally pick a minor area of study as well.
Mhm.
Or you can just pick more modules from your major. So I chose to do, because I remember talking to my teacher about it because when I first started and I first enrolled, because for
Mhm.
the first 2 years of my degree, I actually didn't do any marketing subjects. I was
Right.
completing all the core foundation stuff and
Yep.
I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of knew I wanted to do marketing, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure I was learning the right stuff. So I talked to my lecturer and I said, hey, what complements marketing? What goes really well with marketing if I was to take another section as like a minor, what would go good with it? And he said psychology, because
Yeah.
you've really got to understand how people think to be a good marketer. It's not just about, doing creatives or looking at data. You really need to understand who you're selling to and how to sell to people. So yeah, I did my minor in psychology as well, which at the time was hard. I think it's a lot harder to study science-based courses than it is to study business-based courses, because I also use two different referencing styles. So I had
Yeah.
to do like assignments and stuff, do using two completely different referencing systems, which was a nightmare at the time. But I actually ended up learning probably more from the psychology modules than I did the marketing modules, to be honest, that I use in my actual career now.
Yeah. So business was the core subjects there. Is any of that stuff that you learnt in the business section relevant to what you do today, or is the marketing and the psychology major and minors actually the most valuable bits?
Probably the stuff that I actually found the most helpful in helping me in my current career was, yes, the psychology modules.
Yep.
Funnily enough, the data analysis statistics module that I did has actually ended up coming quite in handy because obviously marketing, people think it's all creative based when it's actually heavily data and statistical based. You
Yeah.
need to be able to look at the data and know what the data says. So that actually ended up being really helpful. And the other thing I think that actually was actually really helpful was more of like a soft skill, was learning how to work to a deadline, a tight deadline, and having to do massive projects or even group projects and stuff, and just having that responsibility of having to hit a deadline by a certain target. And I don't know, I was always one of those people who kind of left it to the last minute to do like my assignments, like with like 7 days left to go, and then I'd do a mad and
Yeah.
like get everything done in the 2 days before it was due, which seemed to have worked.
Yeah.
Because I got, as I went on in my degree, my grades actually got better as I got further into my degree because I understood how the assignments needed to be done. And once I figured out the process, that was it. It was good. I could put it into a system and then bang, 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 got it all out.
It's so okay. We did a business with marketing and psychology, and then after you did your degree, was it just GetCourse that you've been doing since then, or did you have another career in between or job in between it?
Yeah, so I actually started working for GetCourse while I was still at uni doing my degree. I think
Wow.
from memory, I still had about 18 months worth of my degree left to go when I started working on with GetCourse. And then, yeah, because when I first started with GetCourse, I honestly really was only doing sort of more admin type things and like marketing assistant, like basic stuff, like, editing websites and creating like website stuff and everything and admin, start helping Dia with admin stuff and things like that. It wasn't because I was also like only working part time because I was still studying.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to. I still wanted to like focus on finishing my degree first and then just work part-time until I finish and then swap to full-time. So when I graduated, then I swapped to full-time. And that's kind of when I really started to do more of the paid marketing and get
Mm.
more into like the paid marketing and that side. And then decided that I really liked that. I really liked the whole, building a campaign and then seeing it get results. It was like a good sense of achievement. It's like, hey, I actually know what I'm doing. I can get results. So
Well, because it was Dyer that taught you a lot of that stuff to begin with. But I've just, as you were just talking now, I recalled back to when I started with GetCourse too, because we were around the same time. And I remember you guys were living in Southport and I would come over and I think I was working on Woofu and just doing the forms at that time. So, and you were sitting off with, you had your desk set up there and we were both like working throughout the day. That's really cool. I didn't actually know you were at uni at that time. That's really cool to reflect on.
yeah, because I was doing distance learning much. I think because I was still living in Harvey Bay when I started my degree. So I was attending on campus classes and stuff. And then obviously I moved to the Gold Coast for that 12-month period. And
Mm,
then that's when I decided, well, I can just enroll and continue my degree online.
yeah.
So then I did online study for pretty much the rest of my degree. I think it was like, yeah, the last year and a half was online study only.
Wow. Okay. And then, so as you've completed your degree and started working with GetCourse doing the admin websitey stuff, you obviously then transitioned into doing more of the paid marketing, which you said you've loved. What did that look like in the beginning when DK was handing it off to you? Because it's obviously a lot different to what you're doing now. Like you're doing a lot more bells and whistles. You're managing people. You've got a lot more experience in Facebook. You've also picked up AdWords. So it's evolved, but what was the start like?
Yeah, so to start, actually, it was so long ago. It was yeah, 10 years ago. And Facebook marketing was still really, really new.
Mm,
Not very many people were doing it, especially in education. Like no one was doing Facebook marketing. I think we were the first people in the space. So
mhm.
back then it was actually really easy.
Yeah.
Because there was no one on there. There was no competition. It was so easy and so cheap to get
Yep.
sales. It was like crazy. So I think in that way, it was actually really easy to learn as well because you didn't have to be fantastic at it at the start to get results. Obviously,
Hmm.
my skills grew along the way, and then more people started to come into the market and started seeing what we were doing, and we're like, oh, we're going to do that too. And then it started to get harder, and we had to evolve in
Mm,
line with that. But yeah, I think early days, I think it was still when Vet Fee was around when they were still doing like heaps of fee-free placements and stuff before the government cracked down on the regulations. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. And yeah, it was great. I think we only had a couple of clients, 2 or 3 clients, and we were only really heavily advertising maybe 2 or 3 courses to each of
mm.
them on Facebook. And I think I pretty much took over and then was 100% doing the Facebook marketing for at least, like probably the first 4 or 5 years of the
I
company.
remember that. And
I was doing the Facebook marketing. Yeah.
anything that came in was all from you. Like you were the one person doing all of that marketing at one time. And I do remember that other instance where, remember I came to Harvey Bay and the first bit of Facebook knowledge that I ever got in the ads manager was from you. Remember we had to like sit down on the couch and you had to take me through like audience building, creatives, then like the campaign structure. Do you remember that?
Actually don't remember that, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me because yeah,
Yeah.
I was like a one-man band for ages. We didn't hire our first assistant, which was Mel, I think from
Mm,
memory. We didn't hire her until we were at least 4 or 5 years in, I think.
mm.
So I was doing all the marketing stuff myself for the first
That's wild
like
to think.
4 or 5 years.
And audiences too. Like just one thing I do know that's different in your job today that's actually made things a lot harder was I remember you had a really, really specific way of how you would go and build audiences and you were able to like identify different markets through what was available. But as over time, Facebook's also drawn those back in. So what's it like today versus then?
It's drastically different. So back, I call it like the good old days. Back in the good old days, you could be super niche with audiences. Like if you
Mm,
knew the market really, really well, you could literally dial down into individual website names, blog names, Facebook groups, Facebook pages about specific topics. Like you
Mhm.
could literally target pretty much anything as long as it had, I think, more than 50,000 likes or page likes or stuff. And you could literally target anything. And I remember like we used to have heaps of niche audiences. Like, say, for example, like we'd have a business course and we'd be able to break that down into at least like 10 to 20 different niche audiences. Whereas now, Facebook's basically done the complete opposite and they've basically gotten rid of any type of niche targeting. You can't do niche targeting at all anymore. They only really give you very broad overall like interests, like e.g. like cats, dogs, horses, fish. Like you can't dial down into like stay at home fish aquarium keepers anymore. Like
Yeah.
you have to go like broad, which has made it more challenging in that instance, but it's also made people have to pay more attention to their creatives and their copy and stuff because yeah, you can't if you don't have if you don't know who you're targeting, why you're targeting, what problem they have and how you're going to solve their problem, you're going to struggle because you've got to stand out in the noise because now everyone is targeting fraud.
Of course. And then, so my next question immediately after that is, in that environment that we have now, how do you stand out on Facebook these days? Because we're still using paid ads as our grassroots like tool, but how do you get yourself out there and be better?
Yeah. With paid ads now, because Facebook is going so heavily into AI and broad audiences,
Mm.
you really have to focus on copy first. Like copy and creatives has become the number one thing now. And moving into the future, even over the next couple of years, if you don't have your copy and creatives down pat, then
Mhm.
you're just going to get left behind because the AI basically is trained now that it scans your copy and your creatives and it targets people based on what's actually in your ads.
Mm.
So if you're not, calling out your target market or if you don't understand who you're targeting and why you're targeting them and you don't have a good product or a good offer, you're just not going to get very good results.
Mm.
So I think that's probably like the most important thing is having a good product, having a good offer, and then being able to clearly communicate that in a way that is easy for the AI to pinpoint who it needs to target to sell your
Mm.
product to.
So with AI getting so much smarter too, though, like why is the human element still needed when it comes to making that copy super targeted and accurate?
Because in my experience, even with AI, it's still not 100% as good as like someone who really understands marketing strategy and is really good
Mhm.
at it
Mhm.
is still going to be able at this stage to be able to outperform the AIs. Because we know, especially if you know your product really well, you know your audience really, really well,
Mhm.
and you're going to have insider knowledge that the AI just doesn't know. Um, that's going to allow you, to really dial into that market and that product and get your marketing really in line with your customer, which is something that, yeah, yes, you can train the AIs, but it is something that AI still really struggles with at this particular stage.
I think you're right. That is where it is. That's Facebook and how we're managing to like keep things current there. But you've also dipped into AdWords now. Like since we had our main AdWords girl leave, she actually was able to leave a lot of good resources behind, which you've now been able to assume for your own knowledge. What's that learning curve been like for you, actually? Because it's a bit different to Facebook marketing.
Yeah, so Google Ads is very different to Facebook. Facebook is very like creative heavy, like
Mhm.
images, videos, you want it to look good. You want to have good long ad copy to call out your target market and all that sort of stuff. Whereas AdWords the complete opposite. You've got very strict, very short character limits for headlines, body copy. There's no creatives unless you're doing like YouTube marketing or display marketing. If you're just
Mhm.
doing search, there's no creative element at all, really. So again, it's another one where it's different because you've still got to really understand who you're targeting and why, and be able to put that into super concise text with
Yeah.
super short character limits. And sometimes it is really frustrating, like when I'm trying to build a new campaign or something, and like the course has a really long name or something, I have to get really creative with how I do the ads to
Mhm.
try and make it perform the best that I can. But I think again with AdWords, it's really important to understand the market you're in and understand what people in that market want and how your product solves their problems. Because if you don't know that, you're going to be targeting the wrong keywords or you're going to have the wrong copy. And again, you're just going to be paid double what everyone else is because your ads or your quality score is going to be terrible, or you're just going to be completely targeting the wrong person.
And intent as well behind keywords is super important there as well too, because like you could type in horse and you know that horse is going to bring you up some result relating to a horse, but you don't really know what that person's looking for about horses when they type in horse. But something like horse hoof cleaner, you know exactly what's going on. So doing that kind of research, how much time in the grand scheme of things do you spend on doing that part of it versus like actually managing campaigns?
Probably building the campaign is the most time consuming part of the entire process. Once the campaign's built and live, like managing it and optimizing and doing occasional tweaks is actually quite easy. It is the initial research, understanding the course and the target market and all that, and creating all the assets and everything that has to go together where it's the most time consuming. I mean, obviously Google does already provide its own tools like the keyword planner and stuff, which can help you, you know, understand how much search volume some keywords are getting. But again, that's only going to show you the volume and stuff for the keywords you actually put into it. So you could be missing out on a huge bunch of keywords that are actually really relevant to your product if you don't know your product really well, or you don't know your target market really well. So that's probably my biggest learning with AdWords is, yes, Google's tools can help you and give you a general guideline on what you should target and how you should do things. But the key insider knowledge is where you're going to get the wins over your competitors, because you're going to be targeting keywords that they might have never even thought about. So that's kind of my major thing that I've found with Google Ads.
That's awesome. So the other thing I wanted to touch on with you too, because I mean, I'm not really sure about your personal experience in these other platforms, but I know that you've had a lot to do with managing our team in managing them. So when we look at TikTok and Snapchat, I know they're two totally different platforms, but how are these ones again different to Facebook and AdWords?
So Snapchat and TikTok are a lot more video creative heavy. Like
Hmm.
they need to be more like more native and look less like ads. Because if they like ads, people just aren't going to want to engage with them. So usually it's a little bit harder or more time consuming or more expensive to do the content for those channels to put into your ads, because usually you have to find a real person who's willing to stand behind a camera or a mobile phone and record themselves doing your ad or whatever, which is not, not everyone loves to be in front of a camera.
Hmm.
So that is, I think those channels particularly is a little bit more expensive to produce the stuff that goes into making the ads, whereas Meta and AdWords, it's a lot cheaper to get the campaigns up. But yeah, like AdWords especially is generally a lot more expensive traffic wise because it's such high intent compared to, say, social channels. Because I would still judge like TikTok and Snapchat as social channels like Meta is. So it still kind of falls in that same category. But yeah, I don't have huge amounts of experience with either, but we did do TikTok for a while, and eventually I believe we paused it because it actually started to get really expensive and the returns weren't as great. And yeah, we wanted to consolidate our channels a little bit more. So we stopped doing it.
I do remember, like, you're right. They are so content heavy. Because remember when we did the first TikTok ones, it was just me making all of those little videos and the dances. And I think Stella at the time, she was managing that channel. She would go out and she found a couple of UGC creators, which was a challenge in itself. But where I guess this is leading to now with the AI landscape, we're testing stuff there as well. What's the effectiveness been of using AI video on creative forward platforms? Have we got results or input?
Yeah, so we've been testing AI videos where we try to make the person, like the AI, look as realistic as possible. Because if
Hmm.
it's obviously looks like AI, people are going to know it's AI and they're not going to want to engage with it. There's still a lot of like stigma around AI ads and using AI for video and images and stuff, and there's still like a lot of people who don't like it. So I find you've got to try and make them look as native as possible, as much as possible like a real person, which we have tested on various channels, and we have had some success. We've also had some misses. So I think it just depends. Again, it also comes down to not so much like the avatars that you're using, but what you're putting into the video and
Mhm.
what script you're using, what's in that script, I actually think is more important because it's the messaging within the video that's really going to either hit the mark or not, more so than what the avatar person looks like.
Takes me to the next thing that just popped up for me is you're talking about increasing conversion rate. You obviously want higher intent leads. One thing that is the backbone of how you operate, and I know this because we work closely on this, is the pingback and being able to have the transparency of conversion. So, how
Oh,
does that help you in your job?
makes a big difference. Honestly, if we did not have the signals coming back telling us when, one of the leads we sent has actually enrolled into a course, we would be flying blind and we would probably really be struggling to get results for our clients. The data that comes back, we can, because of the way we've built our system, we can dial it right down into the specific ad that got that enrollment. So we
Mhm.
know what's working. We can see what channels are working. We can see what audiences are working, what creators and copy are working. And then we can optimize best for that. And then anything that is not making the client money, we just turn off.
Yeah.
Um,
You've got lead price, which is basically our goal. We get paid per lead, but you've got to make sure the client is getting what they need as well in order for the relationship to even flow. How do you manage that? Because you've got to manage client expectation, but there's also in house budgets that you can't blow.
Yeah, so we've actually started to move away from price per lead models because we find them very restrictive in relation to being able to go after the highest quality traffic for our clients that
Mhm.
actually gets results. So we've recently got 2 or 3 clients now that are on our revenue max model,
Mhm.
which is focused more on like a cost per enrollment target. So the client gives us, the maximum amount they're willing to spend per enrollment on marketing. And then we try to get them as many enrollments as possible that
Yeah.
hits that benchmark within their budget that they're willing to spend every month. And we've had way more success on that model than lead gen because the problem with lead gen is everyone now in the education space, for example, is used to paying, say, like 35 or $50 a lead. So everyone in the industry is like, this is my benchmark. This is how much I'm spending. And the problem with that is there's so much competition and there's so much build up. Everyone's fighting over the same quotation mark cheap leads and it's just not getting results. Whereas if you bid like that little bit more, you're going to get all the traffic that everyone else is missing out on. So, and also markets change, like stuff's seasonal, like sales season, Black Friday and Christmas, like the cost of advertising goes through the roof because everyone is advertising. Whereas say like January, February, March is generally the cheaper time of the year. So you also want to have the flexibility to send your clients more leads that convert higher when they're cheaper because of the season changes versus when it's super, super expensive and they're going to be, running at a loss because the ads are so expensive at that time because there's just so much competition. So I think it's also from that point of view, being able to have the flexibility to go after the highest quality traffic possible at a cost that makes sense to the client. So, they're making money, they're happy, I think
Mhm.
is super important. So yeah, we've actually started to move away from the pay per lead model because like it's very restrictive in relation to like results that we can get for our clients.
Of course, particularly when paid ads is like the main driver of all of it. I mean, leads probably fine for an organic thing, but yeah, when you're managing humongous budgets and, somebody else is putting their faith in you, it's a little bit more important to get something a bit more streamlined and consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, and also clients aren't going to want to buy leads if they're not converting.
Mm.
So it's like you can tell them, oh yeah, I can get you 100, 200 leads a week, but you're not going to get any sales from that. They're not going to stay around very long. Whereas if you tell them, hey, we'll base it off of cost per enrollment target, and we're just going to get you as many enrollments as we can at a cost that makes sense to you,
Mm.
that you're basing it off of the results of you're actually making them money, not just
Yeah.
sending them a bunch of leads that may not convert.
And that point that you just made has been the hardest thing to get across, like with the pingback in general.
Mm.
getting that across in the initial instance before we had set all of that up was the hardest thing to get people to understand, because from the outset, it feels like we're just probing for more data from their system, but it actually plays a much larger role in being able to get them like a really effective result. So I think the way you've just like summed that up is perfect. It's the way that I wish I could have summed it up when I was trying to like work the pingback out all that time ago. Is there anything else that we're kind of working on under the hood at the minute that is interesting or new?
Yeah, probably like interesting things that are coming through is just like all the stuff that's coming through with AI and how it's allowing us to streamline systems and like marketing and just be able to do so much more like volume of work faster.
Yeah.
Like we're able to provide like, build a new client out or build a new course out. We're just able to do it so much quicker now,
Hmm.
with, you know, a smaller team than what we've had, back in our really big vet fee days. We've got like a way smaller team now, but we're able to get so much more done so quickly because of the AI. And I think it's really helpful. And I also see moving forward as it continues to get better, how it's just going to make everything like the sheer amount of volume of work you'll be able to get done in a short period of time. It's just going to be crazy.
It's almost freaky in a way. But the other thing I really actually wanted to ask you about your personal view on it is, because lots of people are either yes or no or in between. Uh, does AI frighten you or excite you?
Probably frightens me, to be honest. Just because, it's based on the people that program it, right? So it's what's their agendas and stuff behind it. But also at the same time, as the AI gets smarter and it starts to become self-learning, I think, that's when we're going to have problems, because they reckon we're getting close to the singularity event. It's supposed to happen this year. Um,
This year?
yeah, this year. It's coming like really quick. Um, and yeah, it's a bit scary because we're creating something that's smarter than us and expecting it to behave. If it becomes self-aware, it's going to, kind of do anything it can to stop itself from being shut down. So
Yeah.
that's the part that kind of freaks me out a little bit, to be honest.
But
Because
you also seem excited too, because when you were talking about new things that we're doing, or it's got that weird element of like, but yes, no, yes, no.
I think it's amazing in just the sheer, like, especially if you need to research something, the sheer amount of volume and detail you can get out of it. Like stuff like that would have taken 2 weeks to do, like a person to do, whereas now you can
Mm.
literally do it in 5 minutes. Like, and the amount of stuff it's able to search and come back with that you wouldn't even have been able to find yourself is just crazy. Like
Mm.
I use it a lot to help me like troubleshoot marketing issues or like look at data, analyze like where I can make improvements with campaigns. Like it's just so much smarter. I mean, obviously you still as a marketer need to know what good looks like, and you need to be able to tell if what it's telling you is actually correct, because AI obviously sometimes does kind of make up a bit of fluff and it can not necessarily be truthful all the time. So
Mm.
you need to have a good enough understanding of marketing and strategy and how everything works and know what good looks like for you to be able to judge the outputs that it's delivering, I think. But yeah, just like the sheer volume of new stuff that it exposes you to is crazy.
It is. And you know what? Just as you were saying that, like having the understanding of the thing, being an expert, being able to tell when it's bluffing you is the main thing. And it just made me
Mhm.
think that mentor or whoever said, yep, do psychology and marketing together. So you kind of had the royal flush back then. You made the right move compared to where we are today, you know? Wowee.